National Security Legislation Amendment, Espionage and Foreign Interference Bill 2017 and the Foreign Influence Transparency Scheme Bill 2017. And while it's true the bills have been available since late last year, we are now considering something quite significantly different. And I find myself in the difficult position of not having had sufficient opportunity to gain a full understanding of what we are considering. It was only yesterday, 24 hours ago, that I actually had a copy of what we are considering today. That's because what we are considering incorporates amendments that arise from the recommendations of the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Intelligence and Security. Those recommendations and the implementation of those recommendations have transformed the bills. The scope of the bills has been reduced considerably, and a range of precautions and safeguards has been introduced. This is a good thing, and I admit I am far less alarmed by the bills than I was when they were first introduced. I am alarmed still by the fact that the bills were so over the top when they were introduced and required the PJCIS to pare them back to something that's not totally inconsistent with a liberal democracy. It's as if the original bills were an ambit claim by the security agencies and the Attorney General's Department. And it alarms me that we have people in our bureaucracy who think it's okay to require registration as a foreign agent of tens of thousands of Australians, probably hundreds of thousands, including members and senators. On what planet do such people exist? Somehow these people came to the conclusion that our democracy would be served by requiring the registration of members and senators as foreign agents because they represented a foreign point of view from time to time, advocating for a free trade agreement with the EU or the UK, for example, advocating for Australia to leave or remain in the United Nations Human Rights Council. Under the original bill, the Foreign Minister and the Shadow Foreign Minister would have done nothing but fill in forms, and of course they would have had to have paid a fee for the privilege. Frankly, I think the people responsible for the original bill should be purged from the public service and sent to count pencils and paper clips. They are a threat to our way of life. And thank goodness the PJCIS has done its job and got rid of most of that nonsense. And just imagine if it hadn't. But the question is, did it get them all? Did it find all the landmines, all the infringements on free speech, on the rights of Australians to advocate for their causes, to speak to people in other countries, to push the case for other countries? I doubt very much if it did. I'll give one example. But I note, in giving this example, I've had only 24 hours to find them, to examine the bill. No doubt there will be other issues, as there was with previous national security legislation that was similarly rammed through the Senate. And the example I give is section 92.2, which states a person commits an offence if they engage in conduct and any of the other following circumstances exist. That conduct occurs in collaboration with a foreign principal, and the conduct is directed, funded or supervised by a foreign principal. The person intends that the conduct will influence a political or government process. No big deal. And any part of the conduct is covert. Now, important point there is that there is no definition of supervised, and clearly the fact that in the same sentence, in the same part, there is also directed. Clearly, supervised is not intended to be the same as supervised. Supervised is not intended to be the same as directed. What does supervised mean? There is no definition in the bill or the Act that it's amending. We have to assume that a court would apply its natural meaning. But what is that? We also have no definition in the bill or the Act that it's amending for covert. We don't know what that means either. And again, a court would have to apply what it thinks is its natural meaning. Now, examples of covert might be the use of WhatsApp, which is an encrypted messaging service, or because WhatsApp is being used by half of the Parliament. Maybe a court might say, oh no, that's not covert, but Telegram is. Telegram's not being used by so many. And in Telegram, the messages actually erase themselves after a little while. You can set how long that is. Is that covert? Now, there are 3 examples I can think of that could well and truly fall foul of that provision. The Vatican is a foreign power. Priests, Catholic priests, are undoubtedly directed by, if not supervised by, the Vatican. Canon law governs their life. Canon law originates in the Vatican. So if a priest here in Australia is lobbying the government, advocating for the government to adopt a particular position on something as controversial as assisted suicide, less controversial same-sex marriage, the redress scheme for the child abuse cases, does that run foul of the law? Another example might be advocating a free trade agreement with Taiwan. Taiwan is a free democratic society. We have a free trade agreement with China, which isn't a free democratic society, and advocating for a free trade agreement with Taiwan. Would it be supervised? Would it be directed? You might potentially envisage going to the Taiwanese embassy and saying, how would you like me to approach this? What is going to maximise the chances of being success? What have you said that I can say that will complement that? Would that amount to being directed? And what if you communicated in a fashion such as via WhatsApp or Telegram? I think it would satisfy all of the criteria. And a case that I've raised in estimates, which is Australia's foreign aid to the Palestinian territories and whether that aid ends up assisting Hamas. You could easily envisage a situation where you might liaise with representatives from the Israeli government as to ensure that you're not cutting across something that they're already saying, that you're not contradicting information that they've put out, and does that contravene this provision? And can I note that if you do contravene this provision, the offence carries a penalty of 20 years in prison. We should not be in a situation where that sword, that degree of risk, depends on a definition of supervised or covert. Now, I am confident that that issue, and almost certainly others there that I haven't found yet, would be discovered by an inquiry by the Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee. And so, as it stands, we will have to fix up this bill later, as we have done in other national security legislation. The bills have aspects in them that I can support, but given I haven't had time to properly consider them, I have no option but to vote against them.